What's good, guys? I hope you had a Merry Christmas and I hope you're still celebrating with your family and friends. Hey, as we're online today, I wanted to take just a couple of minutes to bring you a couple of things out of the book of Luke. And so, as you guys are hanging out with family and friends, I hope you'll grab a Bible and join along with me. Today, we'll start in Luke chapter 2 and we'll really walk through the whole book of Luke very quickly, kind of 30,000 foot overview of the book of Luke to see why I think it's important that we can have hope because of Jesus' birth. I was in Christmas Eve services and they kept saying this word hope, and it was reminding me of why we have hope. But I think it's sometimes confusing for us to say, why does a baby's birth mean that we can have hope? I mean, there's babies born all the time, right? There'll be babies born today, yesterday, and even tomorrow, and they may not necessarily mean hope for us. But what really does matter is that we can have hope because of Jesus' birth. The Christmas story is really encapsulated. It's all seen here in Luke chapter 2. And really here in Luke chapter 2, verse 18, the shepherds who had just seen Jesus were there. They're with Mary and Joseph and baby Jesus in the manger. And here's what it says in verse 18. And all who heard it were amazed at what the shepherds had said to them. But Mary was treasuring up all these things in her heart and meditating on them. And my favorite verse out of Luke chapter 2 is this. It says this: the shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all the things they had seen and heard, which were just as they had been told. You see, we can really have hope in the Christmas story for a few different reasons. And really the first thing that we see is everything is as it was supposed to be. You see, the hope and the message and the purpose of Christmas is really back to Jesus' birth. We celebrate Jesus' birth. It's a happy birthday to Jesus. And the encouragement we have here is this, that as we read these words, we have hope. Jesus' birth brings us hope because it is as it said it would be. You see, the entire Bible points to Jesus' life. There's over 200 specific, unique prophecies about Jesus' life, that these certain things would come true in Jesus' birth, life, death, and resurrection, and they're coming true. So this gives us hope because it means that the Bible is accurate, that we can trust the Bible. So these prophecies being accurate are important. So there is hope that we find here in Luke chapter 2, verse 20, but we also see hope in Luke chapter 8. So if you'll read with me in Luke chapter 8, there's a couple of different sections that we could look to for this, but we can also find hope because of this. In Luke chapter 8, verse 22, it says this: one day he being Jesus, and his disciples got into a boat, and he told them, let's cross over to the other side of the lake. So they set out, and as they were sailing, he fell asleep. Then a fierce windstorm came down on the lake, and they were being swamped and were in danger. They came and woke him up, saying, Master, Master, we're going to die. Then he got up and rebuked the wind and the raging waves, so they ceased, and there was a calm. And he said to them, where is your faith? They were fearful and amazed, asking one another, who then is this? He commands even the winds and the waves, and they obey him. You see, one of the reasons that we can have hope is that Jesus does things we can't. You see, there's great theologians and philosophers have pointed to the argument or evidence for Jesus, and one of those is that Jesus is perfect. And we know that that's important because we aren't. If there was a God that we could understand or rationalize or be as powerful as, there would then be no need for a God. We could just be our own gods, but we can't. We're not perfect, and we can't do these things, right? The wind and the waves obey him. Jesus is in charge of the weather, right? He runs everything, big things and little things. He's in charge of them all. He finishes, he commands even the winds and the waves, and they obey him. You see, even the winds and the waves obey Jesus. Not only did he give us hope because of Luke 2:20, where everything is as it said it would be, but it's also true of Luke chapter 8, where Jesus does things that we can't do. And it continues over here in Luke chapter 23. If you'll flip or click or make your way to Luke 23, Luke 23 gives us a lot of really good things. And here's the things that I think are important for us. As Jesus is led to the cross, we fast forward from baby or cradle all the way up to the cross. And as we get to the cross where Jesus is about to die, at the moment of death, Jesus in Luke 23:46 says this: Father, into your hands I entrust my spirit. Saying this, he breathed his last breath. And in verse 47, here's what we want to talk about today. When the centurion saw what happened, he began to glorify God, saying, "This man really was righteous." You see, it took this centurion man until Jesus' death, but when Jesus died, he knew instantly, and he praised God, saying, "Truly this man was righteous. This man really was righteous." This is as the Bible said it would be. It is as Jesus said it would be. And so we know that Jesus was who he said he was. And it was made clear to the centurion man. But then maybe the best news of all, the reason that we can have the most hope, is that at the end of the day, Jesus took a punishment that we deserved. You know, it doesn't take much convincing to tell you that your siblings, your friends, your family members, all of the people in your life aren't perfect. We would all agree and be able to list reasons or evidences of why those people aren't perfect. But the important thing is that we're also not perfect. It's so easy for us to judge others on their actions, but ourselves on our intentions, giving us the benefit of the doubt and not giving that to others. But the truth is that we are not perfect. And my hope and encouragement to you today is that we can have hope because Jesus took the punishment we deserve for sin. You see, because of our sin or things that we do that aren't according to what God wants for our lives, we deserve eternity in hell. But we don't get that because Jesus died on this cross for us. As a matter of fact, even though he was perfect, that we see here, he, in verse 47, really was righteous, was without sin. Even though Jesus was without sin, he took the punishment you and I deserve in order that we could be made right before God. And that gives us hope. You know, I want to leave you with this story. There are a lot of things I've had hope in my life. I've had hope in sports teams. I've had hope in friendships and relationships and all different number of things. But the current thing I'm placing a little bit of hope in is the Cleveland Browns. Shout out Caleb for the jersey. But I have hope in the Cleveland Browns today. As a matter of fact, as you watch this today on Sunday, they're playing with a shot to make it to the playoffs, which is something that hasn't happened in over 20 years. It's nuts what's happening. They've got a chance to do something that's not happening forever. They've been forever known as the worst franchise in football, and they just couldn't get it done, couldn't get the pieces together. They've had like 85 quarterbacks, but Baker Mayfield is coming to change that. And you know, I have hope in that. I have hope that Baker's going to turn the tide. He's going to get some touchdowns today. He's going to throw some beautiful passes. He's going to hand the ball off really well and not really do anything on those plays. But I have hope. But you know, the good thing and the difference between hope in a football team or a football player and a hope in Jesus is that eventually my football team is going to let me down. They're not going to win the Super Bowl every year for the rest of eternity, right? Like that will never happen. But I can have hope in Jesus because of what he did on the cross. You see, Luke 23 tells us that he really was righteous. You see, Jesus lived a perfect life. He did something we could never do. We could never imagine doing. And because of that, he deserves our worship. So as you get ready today to watch our Unplugged service and hang out with your family and friends, I want you to be reminded that we can have hope because of what Jesus did. He was perfect even though we aren't. Jesus did things that we couldn't do, and that gives us hope, and ultimately that he took a punishment that we deserved, and that can give us eternal hope, hope that will never, ever let us down. Thanks for hanging with us today, and we'll see you guys on January 6th for our next youth group back in person. See you guys.